Well, the Salvation Army announced last Friday that its thrift store in Bishop will close on Saturday, January 23rd. Now, that thrift store is located in the Smart and Final 7 Center, 1180 North Main Street in Bishop, and that's been operated by the Salvation Army Bishop Corps for several years. Press release notes that although local support of the store has been good, it has not been able to profit enough, and the decision was made to close it. Said Lieutenant Kathy McCauley of the Bishop Salvation Army, quote, "Making the decision to close this store was a difficult one. While the town of Bishop has been supportive of the store, it wasn't enough to cover our overhead expenses," end quote. That same press release notes the Salvation Army has a long tradition of operating successful thrift stores throughout the country. Each store, including the Bishop location, is operated to raise income for the social services and other programs the Salvation Army provides in the area. Now, if a thrift store operates without profit, it has the potential of affecting the local social service programs. Our main mission is to provide helpful services for those in need, Lieutenant McCauley said. Despite the thrift store closure, we remain committed to providing social service assistance, worship, and fellowship offerings to the community of Bishop and its surrounding area, end quote. Now, the Salvation Army Bishop Corps, which is located at 621 West Line Street, does provide a variety of services to the Inyo County area, including assisting families and individuals in emergency situations with basic needs such as emergency food, clothing, health services, and shelter. Now, worship programs, a Sunday community breakfast, and the press release notes emotional and spiritual counseling are also provided, as well as referrals to rehabilitation programs. Now, seasonal assistance is offered through the Salvation Army during the holidays, providing meals, food boxes, coats, and toys to families and individuals in need. Salvation Army has a team of disaster response trained volunteers on standby, ready to deploy and assist with both local and regional disasters, including forest fires and large-scale accidents on Highway 395. And the press release notes, in addition, the Salvation Army aims to eventually open an after-school program. Now, that thrift store space on Main Street has been leased by the Salvation Army. Remember, back in October, the Salvation Army announced that it was searching for a new building to purchase that would allow the Salvation Army to consolidate its worship, social services, and thrift store operations into one location. Salvation Army still working with local stakeholders to identify available options. Said Lieutenant McCauley, quote, "Even though the thrift store is closing, it's not necessarily a permanent closure. If we are able to acquire a new building that can meet our space needs, we would revisit the idea of reopening the store," end quote. Again, that store will remain open through Saturday, January 23rd. Pending available merchandise, donations will not be accepted after this Wednesday, January 13th. Daily shopping hours Tuesday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. More information about the programs and services offered by the Salvation Army of Bishop can be found online, salvationarmybishop.org, where you can check out the Facebook page. Well, Deb Murphy filed this story for Sierra Wave Media. Mammoth Town Council members were all happy campers at last Wednesday's meeting, thanks in large part to an abundance of snow, an avalanche of holiday visitors, and an estimated $2 million in transient occupancy taxes logged last month, in addition to adding a 22% increase that was compared to last year's TOT totals. Now, the major agenda items focused on funding for design and environmental documents for the multi-use facility. The facility was approved by a 3-2 vote in late October, along with $150,000 in funding. Now, due to the need for a bullet-resistant California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, analysis, the price tag rose by $50,000. A recent meeting with Mammoth Mountain Ski Resort and Hart Howerton, a community land use architectural firm, open discussion of whether to proceed immediately with the preliminary work on the multi-use facility or wait and see what becomes of the town's relationship with the mountain and its consultant. Now, the discussion was an extension of one started late last year following Mammoth Mountain's annual update. Now, with a refinance deal intact, the mountain is proceeding with long-term plans to recreate itself and seems eager to partner with the town of Mammoth Lakes. I haven't seen the scope of work, said Dan Holler, the town manager, or the funding. Now, if it develops into a community plan, we'll need to have skin in the game. Well, based on this last week's meeting, Mayor Michael Raimondo and Mammoth Council member Shields Richardson, the two no votes on the MUF last October, wanted to put the brakes on the multi-use facility at Mammoth Creek Park West. In response, Holler explained that the preliminary design could be applicable to other sites. I see nothing compelling to change director, was Councilmember Johns Wentworth's summation. Members Joe Bacon and Colin Fernie agreed, passing the additional funds with a 3-2 vote. Now, the timeline going forward allows for an abundance of public input and meetings. The design firm HMC Architects will come in with 3 alternate designs, Holler explained. A January 29th public meeting is scheduled for input, with a second meeting before Michael Baker International begins the CEQA process. Scope of work includes a multi-use facility, a community center, and access to the park. Deb Murphy also filed this story. California Department of Public Health staff were probably waiting Tuesday afternoon for Southern Inyo Hospital's board to either suspend the hospital's license or plead for more time. The board did neither. Instead, Richard Fedcheko, Jackie Hickman, and Mark Lacey, with just 7 days of board experience under their belts, sent a letter outlining the changes made by healthcare conglomerate associates, rescinding the closures of the emergency room and the skilled nursing facility, and asking the department not suspend or revoke the license. Now, for the first time in a month, Southern Inyo residents can have more than just blind faith in their local hospital that it will survive due to what can be best be described as incredible chutzpah of the board. That chutzpah was backed up by HCC's Dr. Benny Benzibi. His ability to bring in Southern Inyo Hospital's chief restructuring officer, Dr. Alan Germany, earlier last week and begin the process of bringing the facility back to life, said board president Fedcheko in a phone interview with Deb Murphy last Wednesday afternoon. I have the feeling we're in pretty good shape. And he noted that after the CDPH's 2 health facility evaluation nurses started their drive back to Sacramento. The 2 evaluators had spent the day touring Southern Inyo Hospital, looking in all the cupboards and refrigerators, Fedcheko said. They asked a lot of questions, including how quickly we could have the ER staffed. Now, the answer was a couple of days at most. Benzibi, in addition to his position with HCCA, is president of MedFlow, an emergency room staff provider. HCCA was responsible for turning the Tulare Regional Medical Center around last year. The Southern Inyo Hospital Board signed a management agreement with the company at the end of a day-long meeting recently, with the hope that they could do the same in Southern Inyo. Now, the board, the staff, and the 15 former skilled nursing facility residents have to wait for the public health response. There are a lot of people depending on this, Fedcheko said. We'll be back with more news.